Poseidon, Neptune. He was the ruler of the sea, Zeus's brother, and second only to him in eminence. The Greeks on both sides of the Aegean Sea were seamen, and the god of the sea was all important to them. His wife, Amphitrite, a granddaughter of the Titan Ocean. Poseidon had a splendid palace beneath the sea, but he was often more to be found in Olympus itself. Besides being lord of the sea, he gave the first horse to man, and he was honored as much for the one as for the other. Lord Poseidon, from you this pride is ours, the strong horses, the young horses, and also the rule of the deep. Storm and calm were under his control. He commanded, and the storm wind rose, and the surges of the sea. But when he drove in his golden car over the waters, the thunder of the waves sank into stillness, and tranquil peace followed his smooth rolling wheels. He was commonly called Earthshaker, and was always shown carrying his trident, a three-pronged spear with which he would shake and shatter whatever he pleased. He had some connection with bulls as well as with horses, but the bull was connected with many other gods too. After Kronos was deposed, the three sons threw dice for his empire. Zeus, the youngest, won and chose the sky. Poseidon smiled to himself because the sky was empty, and he knew that the impulsive Zeus had chosen it because it looked so high. And now he, Poseidon, could choose as he would have done if he had won. He chose the sea. He had always wanted it, and it is the best place for adventures and secrets, and makes claim on land and sky. Hades, who was always unlucky, had to take the underworld. The earth was held as a commonwealth and left to the goddesses to manage. Poseidon left Olympus and came to his kingdom. He immediately set about to building a huge underwater palace with a great pearl and coral throne. He needed a queen and chose Thetis, a beautiful nereid or water nymph. But it was prophesied that any son born to Thetis would be greater than his father, so Poseidon decided to try elsewhere. The prophecy came true. The son of Thetis was Achilles. Poseidon chose another nereid named Amphitrite. But like his brother Zeus, he was a great traveler and had hundreds of children in different places. He was a very difficult god, changeful and quarrelsome. He did bear grudges, but he could be pleased, and then his smile was radiant. He liked jokes and thought up very curious forms for his creatures. He liked to startle nymphs with monsters, and concocted the octopus, the squid, the sea polyp or jellyfish, the swordfish, blowfish, sea cow, and many others. Once trying to appease Amphitrite's jealous rage, he thought of the dolphin and gave it to her as a gift. He was greedy and aggressive, always trying to add to his kingdom. Once he claimed Attica as his own and stabbed his trident into the hillside where the Acropolis still stands, and a spring of salt water sprouted. Now the people of Athens did not want to belong to the kingdom of the sea. They were afraid of Poseidon, who had a habit of seizing all the youth of a town when he was in the mood. So they prayed to be put under the protection of another god. Athena heard their prayers. She came down and planted an olive tree by the side of the spring. Poseidon was enraged. His face darkened, and he roared with fury, raising a storm. A fishing fleet was blown off the sea and never came to port. He challenged Athena to single combat and threatened to stir up a tidal wave to break over the city if she refused. She accepted, but Zeus heard the sound of this quarreling and came down and decreed a truce. Then all the gods sat in council to hear the rival claims. After hearing both Athena and Poseidon, they voted to award the city to Athena because her olive tree was the better gift. After that, Athenians had to be very careful when they went to sea, and were often unfortunate in their naval battles. Poseidon was very fond of Demeter, and pursued her hotly whenever he thought about it. He cornered her finally one hot afternoon in the mountain pass, and demanded that she love him. She didn't know what to do. He was so huge, so implacable, so persistent. Finally, Demeter said, "Give me a gift. You have made creatures for the sea, now make me a land animal, but a beautiful one, the most beautiful ever seen." She thought she was safe because she believed he could only make monsters. She was amazed when he made her a horse, and gasped with delight when she saw it. And Poseidon was so struck by his handiwork that he swiftly made a herd of horses that began to gallop about the meadow, tossing their heads, flirting their tails, kicking up their back legs, and neighing joyously. And he was so fascinated by the horses that he forgot all about Demeter, and leaped on one and rode off. Later he made another herd of green ones for his undersea stables. But Demeter kept the first herd. From that, all the horses in the world had descended. Another story says it took Poseidon a full week to make the horse. During that time he made and cast aside many other creatures that didn't come out right, but he simply threw them away without killing them, and they made their way into the world. From them have come the camel, the hippopotamus, the giraffe, the donkey, and the zebra. In another story, Demeter turned herself into a mare to escape Poseidon, but he immediately changed himself into a stallion, galloped after her, and caught her. From this courtship came a wild horse, Arion, and the nymph named Despoina. Demeter was also a moon goddess, and all through mythology there is a connection between horse and moon and sea. The she-horse is given a sea name, Mare. The moon swings the tides, the waves have white manes, the dripping horses stamp on the beach, and their hooves leave moon-shaped marks, an old thing that has not entirely disappeared. Poseidon sat at his desk doing figures. The administration of all the waters gave him endless work. He could have had assistants, as many as he wanted, and he did have very many, but since he took his job very seriously, he would in the end go over all the figures and calculations himself, and thus his assistants were of little help to him. It cannot be said that he enjoyed his work. He did it only because it had been assigned to him. In fact, he had already filed many petitions for, as he put it, more cheerful work. But every time the offer of something different was made to him, it would turn out that nothing suited him quite as well as his present position over the sea. And anyhow, it was quite difficult to find something different for him. After all, it was impossible to assign him to a particular sea, aside from the fact that even then the work with figures would not become less, but only pettier. The great Poseidon could in any case occupy only an executive position. And when a job away from the water was offered to him, he would get sick at the very prospect. His divine breathing would become troubled, and his brazen chest would begin to tremble. Besides, his complaints were not really taken seriously, and one of the mighty is vexatious. The appearance of an effort must be made to placate him, even when the case is most hopeless. In actuality, a shift of posts was unthinkable for Poseidon. he had been appointed god of the sea in the beginning, and that he had to remain. What irritated him most, and it was this that was chiefly responsible for his dissatisfaction with his job, was to hear of the conceptions formed about him, how he was always riding about through the tides with his trident, when all the while he sat here in the depths of the world ocean, doing figures uninterruptedly, with now and then a trip to Jupiter as the only break in the monotony, a trip, moreover, from which he usually returned in a rage. Thus he had hardly seen the sea, had seen it but fleetingly in the course of hurried ascents to Olympus, and he had never actually traveled around it. He was in the habit of saying that what he was waiting for was the fall of the world. Then probably a quiet moment would yet be granted in which, just before the end, and after having checked the last row of figures, he would be able to make a quick little tour. Poseidon became bored with his sea. He let fall his trident. Silently he sat on the rocky coast, and a gull, dazed by his presence, described wavering circles around his head.